What's up, champs? Welcome to another episode of the Short Shifts Fantasy Hockey Podcast, brought to you by Keeping Karlsson. I'm your host, Louis Ezekiel. Joining me tonight, my pal and yours, Shams Benamor. Shams, how are you doing on this lovely evening? Neither you nor I are named Brock, so we don't have any points in the NHL tonight, but I'm pretty sure every other Brock does, from your Fabers to your Nelsons to your Bessers. Fun night so far.
Oh yeah, I'm on the right side of two nail biters in my two leagues right now, so I'm basically just checking off every score, seeing if that turns the tide for either of us throughout the night.
Yeah, definitely. I'm in a pretty tight match myself, so it'll be exciting to see. I am regretting benching Drake Batherson. I was mentioning in the Short Shifts chat that he only scores when I bench him. I have him benched today, and of course he has 5 shots and a goal. Yesterday didn't do a whole lot of anything in the lineup, so it's just the way it is. All right, well, we are dropping into your feeds like Jonas Johansson should be dropping to your waiver wires. I was talking about looking for an off-ramp on Tuesday, and I decided to take it, and I'm glad I did. He has been pretty disastrous against Chicago. We'll keep you updated on that, but I think we talked about him enough. We do have some pretty interesting headlines in Shams. I'm going to have you tackle the first one. Calen Addison, former heir apparent to the Power Play 1 quarterback position in Minnesota, is on the move. What is the latest?
He basically got traded to the Sharks for a bag of pucks. I think it was like a 5th round pick and like a perennial AHLer. So basically, we all saw that the team basically gave up on him, and now they're making it official, so that just giving him to another team. But the interesting thing is that you could do a retrospective on what happened in Minnesota, but with the Sharks, obviously with their talent right now, Addison is playing top line or top pairing, and also on the top power play with Eklund, Granlund, Duclair, and Hurdle. So I know the Sharks are not the greatest. Addison hasn't done much himself, but if you're like me and don't spend too much draft capital on defensemen and he's still hanging around on a waiver wire, you're going to see the game. That's because we're going to be recording before, so we don't know how he played tonight. But depending on that, he might be a person to just take a flyer on and see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I have taken your advice very much to heart. I am currently rostering one defenseman, Sean Jersey, in the cupful, and have been all week just because the way the schedule is played out. I've been able to keep that and have it, be a legitimate lineup. So, yeah, I might take a look at him. I've got some bottom feeder guys that I'm just trying to squeeze a game or two out of here for the week. So, I do have my eye on him. Of course, as you say, your mileage may vary with how much value there is on that top power play out in San Jose. And like you mentioned, the team had sort of lost faith in him. I was sort of wondering if it would be like maybe Dean Evison goes and maybe Calen Addison can pick it up. I think probably now they both are eventually going to be out of there, and Addison won't be there to maybe benefit from a new coach who might see something else out of him. All right, we also want to talk briefly about some signs of life from Evan Rodrigues. He started the season on a tear, 8 points in those first 6 games, including a 2-goal, 2-assist outburst at Winnipeg that really put the stars in our eyes. We were talking about him. I know they were talking about him on the Big Pod. But then he went on a 5-game pointless streak during which he had 3 0-shot games and was demoted from the first line and top power play. But against Washington on Wednesday, he was reunited with Barkov and Reinhart at even strength. And in 13.5 even strength minutes, the trio dominated shot attempts. They scored 3 even strength goals. Erod got one of those goals, and then he assisted on the overtime game winner from Reinhart. Also in on that goal was Alex Barkov, indicating that Florida did indeed have a 3-forward overtime group out there. I kind of see what they were doing since OEL is their top offensive defenseman who's not injured right now. And he really had some struggles with some giveaways and that sort of thing. So I could see why you might not necessarily want him out there during overtime where he's kind of a liability. So it was cool to see that 3-forward look. It was nice for Erod owners that he was included. There's 2 more off-night games this week still. So Friday, Sunday games, if he was dropped in your league like he was in many places, he is back with that Barkov-Reinhart line where he's been showing a lot of chemistry. That is a sweet third wheel spot, even if he's not getting the top power play. So if you're looking to add some games, I might jump on him because that is a very nice option that is available.
I lucked out because I was close to dropping him myself, but with that good schedule, I kept him around. And then I'm with you, is that now the power play, that's a different dance that we might be in. That would be nice to have him, but as long as he's with those two great players, Barkov and Reinhart, on the even strength, I'll be interested in keeping him around. It's a little despairing that he hasn't been shooting as much, so it's going to be highs and lows, but the highs can be really high when you're playing with those two players.
Yeah, definitely. All right. We also saw an injury from Tristan Jarry. This was kind of a weird one. It looked like Adam Henrique's butt kind of knocked the mask, jostled it on his head a little bit. And then, in just a terrible turn of events, he happened to take a puck in the head right in that moment while his mask was set aside. What's the update on Jarry's prognosis here?
Just a side that NHL players are just something different. So he is supposedly fine, quote unquote. The only thing that's left right now is that he has swelling on the eye. And then once that swelling goes away, he's going to be good to play. The coach said he's day to day. So I'm no doctor. I would not sure how long that swelling would go, but I wouldn't be surprised to say maybe like he's not going to be playing tonight for sure. And then I think they have another game for Saturday. So that one might be a long shot in my opinion. Maybe he might make it. And then once he's back, he should be fine. And the nice thing is that by the sound of it is that this is not going to be a thing that, say, lingers. It's just going to be that kind of one-off event. And then once he's back, he's back. You don't have to worry about, did he injure his back or something like that.
Yeah, for sure. It's the kind of thing where it's sort of localized and it's not at big risk for re-aggravation. So, definitely some positives out of that because it was a bit of a scary scene. There was some blood. No one was really sure what happened. It kind of took some zaprootering of the replay to figure out exactly what happened. All right, and then one last kind of little bit of news here. John Gibson, speaking of signs of life, we talked about Erod. Gibson posted his first back-to-back quality starts of the season with a .938 to beat the Golden Knights and a .971 in a loss to the Penguins. He's up to .921 on the season and is starting to round into, finally, a guy who plays on off nights and who might be a great value pick if the Ducks can stay competitive in the Pacific. Obviously we've been talking about some of the struggles that Trevor Zegras has been having, but I think that the team definitely overall has looked really solid, and if they can win some more games, I love that in the Cupful, the Keeping Karlsson Ultimate Patron Fantasy League, they added that extra point for getting a goalie win, and that is a big benefit to guys who can pull in some of those W's. So John Gibson, finally doing what a lot of people have been hoping he can do in fantasy for quite a while.
So the big thing is with Gibson is that I am interested with him. The team actually looks good, so they could get some wins now. The question is where's Luke Dostal in this? Because he has been playing well as well, and they seem to be playing him back to back, or at least in a rotation. This was the first break of it, so maybe it might be a situation where Gibson is taking the net back, and I would lead to Gibson because that's where the money is, but something to have to keep in mind is going to be a real big thing is if Gibson somehow gets this third start in a row, I'd be a little bit more into thinking that he has the net, but it might have just been a situation where for some reason they just gave him two and then Dostal's going to get two in a row. So that's going to be the thing that I'm concerned about, say for your volume leagues. But overall, I am a fan of just Anaheim in general.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, I'm with you. Again, this has been a fun season because we're starting to see some of the stuff we've been waiting for a long time finally coming to fruition. All right, we're gonna run through some injuries and oucheries. They are fairly quick. First is some real devastation in the blue paint for the blue shirts. Shams, tell us what's going on with the goalies in New York City.
So they seem to be keeping Shesterkin under wraps. So it sounds like that he's not severely injured or not even sure what exactly the injury is, but they're just taking it very slow, and understandably he is the team effectively. So while he is kind of on the mend taking it slow, the backup who was taking the starts quick is now injured as well. So right now I'm surprised, I guess, he has played, but Louis Domingue is kind of the main goalie right now because the other guy I had to Google is Dylan Garland, or Garand. I added an L there to show how much I know who this person is. So basically the idea is that hopefully, Shesterkin or Quick come back. It doesn't seem long term, but right now it's a very interesting setup with the goalies where maybe you might want to target the opposing team, but Domingue is somehow playing well right now. I think they're winning 3-1 right now, so he's doing well enough.
Yeah, I tried to get a clever idea in mind that I would, start Ryan Hartman against the Rangers because Domingue, seems suspect, but it does look like they're going to win. Luckily, he got an assist there, but I sat Batherson, which was a bad move. Yeah. All right. We're also kind of on Markstrom watch here. Jacob Markstrom didn't practice on Wednesday, and the team called up Dustin Wolf. So we'll see what's going on Friday and Saturday. Nothing official, but just something to keep a wary eye out for. I know a lot of people have been very excited about Wolf, so could be a cool opportunity to see him get in there and see what he can do for the Flames. But again, yeah, just sort of something we gotta watch and wait. Another guy who is back in action, or at least says he's going to be back in action, is Carter Hart. He told reporters that he is healthy, and then the team confirmed he is indeed starting tomorrow against the Ducks. So that'll be another interesting match as we've got Philly out there on their California road trip. They already have lost to the Sharks, so they may be looking to get themselves a little bit of revenge. Since that, it's not a great, not great to lose to the Sharks. Although I think you dug up some interesting information. I guess they are like a combo breaker kind of team. Arizona broke their long losing streak against the Flyers as well. So, you get an Eastern team against a West team that's on a real long streak, and the Flyers have just been a great opportunity for those teams to get off the schneid and finally get in the win column. So congratulations to the Sharks. Should be a very interesting game between the Sharks and the Oilers, who are currently battling for the basement of the Pacific. You hate to say it, but that's the reality we find ourselves in.
And on the non-goalie side, we have Stephenson for the Vegas Golden Knights going to be out 2 games. That was the Wednesday game and the game that's happening tomorrow. So basically what's going to happen is that he's going to be out for the remainder of this fantasy week. So if you picked him up to try to stream on some off nights or whatnot, you don't have him for the rest of the time, and then we'll just kind of have to wait and see if it's going to be something longer. He hasn't been doing too much, but with the line mates, you'd hope that he would do more. So just kind of put a pin on that and then wait and see. And then on the better end of that is that Horvat's back in the lineup for the Islanders. I don't think he has any points, but the idea is that he's back with Barzal and the top line. And then we all know is that last year Barzal went on a heater when Horvat joined the team and then went back to his cold self when Horvat was injured. So this is kind of a nice 2-for-1 is that, you get Horvat back and then you have Barzal as an actual playable player now that has that wing eligibility. So you can actually fit him in your lineup.
Yeah, the Barzal-Horvat combo is one that a lot of people have been talking about all through the offseason, and obviously, yeah, we saw the sparks there. I think Dom said it most loudly that this is the best shooter that Barzal has had the opportunity to dish to, so give him some time to get back in the groove, and I think that'll be a benefit for both players. We talked about that a little bit with Jeremy on the Tuesday show. And then we are going to hit some hot and cold streaks. We've got a bunch of them for you on the other side of this short break. Stick around, please. You're listening to Short Shifts. Welcome back to Short Shifts. Let's run through some of these hot and cold streaks. We'll just kind of go back and forth with every other with some different hot and cold players. I'm going to start with a hot one. Eeli Tolvanen, wielding the hot stick at the moment, 3 goals, 2 assists in his last 5 games, and shooting a ton, the kind of stuff that we, dreamed of seeing when he was in Nashville, and occasionally actually did see. He has kind of the curse of the Kraken players, which is, he is around 50% of the available power play time. He's getting around 15 minutes of ice time. It's pretty much the fate of all Seattle forwards. He has been joined at the hip with Yanni Gourde, and about a 60-40 split between McCann and Oliver Bjorkstrand as the other wing during the stretch. I really like him as long as he keeps shooting, but, think carefully about how you want to go about it because he is going to have kind of limited ice time. His power play access will be limited, even if he is on, the positive side of 50% sometimes. It's never super predictable who's going to end up getting the lion's share. And usually the answer is nobody. It's usually a pretty even split. And I think that's nice for Seattle to be able to do. Obviously, for our fantasy purposes, we would love everybody to just load up on the top players and forget all these other fantasy irrelevant guys. But that's not the way the real game works. Let's head down to Carolina for a cold streak for someone we've actually talked about on the show quite a bit so far in the young season.
Yeah, it's Teuvo Teravainen back in our show. It feels like he has turning into one of our favorite players for the wrong reasons because he seems to be flipping from totally hot to totally cold. Now, right now, he's sitting on 0 points for the last 3 games, but he does at least have at least 3 shots in those games, so he is doing a little bit more. But the interesting thing is that I say the last 3 games, but what happened is that he had a 4-goal outburst for 2 games. And then before that, he had another long stint of no points. So basically what has happened is he just had a cold streak, a short hot streak, and now back to a cold streak. The thing that's keeping me interested is that he is with Kotkaniemi and Svechnikov. So while we talk about them spreading out their offense, he does have some of their best offensive players, at least with Svechnikov. And then if you're not going to be with Aho, Kotkaniemi is going to be your next best bet. So that is interesting. But for me is that without those points and a couple shots a game is that like in Cupful, I feel like with 14 teams, it's going to be hard to consider dropping someone of that caliber. But I have him in a 10-team league and it's a categories league. So like, I already have enough shots for other players that I'm probably leading to thinking about dropping him there. So it's going to be kind of that question of he's going to have another hot streak at some point, but I'm not sure I want to use my roster spot to wait for that in a shallower league.
Yeah, it's kind of funny just to think about, like, we look at that as being a significant problem for Svechnikov, like, oh, we don't love his teammates, but we look at the other guys online and we're like, well, it's a nice spot for them. So, good overall, right? So, sorry to those gentlemen, but yeah, that's the reality we find ourselves in. And, it's tough. I've really liked Kotkaniemi, at times throughout the year. It's been kind of interesting and exciting to think about, the potential there, but I feel like Carolina is almost kind of like the Seattle of the East. Like they are one of the most spread out teams. They can afford to have a guy like Svechnikov find his feet on a line like this. So, it is what it is, and it's not likely to change anytime soon. So, I think a guy who's interesting to take a look at, but maybe you can grab him during the lull, and then you'll have him when he turns hot again. On to another hot player, Joel Farabee, 4 points in the last 4 games, 2 goals, 2 assists. He at best is getting around 16 minutes a game, but he has points in 8 of his last 12. He's been a guy who's been on rosters because the Flyers have had a few nice schedule weeks. Always nice for a streamer, not necessarily someone I'm looking to hold on long term. Although obviously we talked a little bit about the offensive depth for the Flyers getting a boost with Couturier back. Not necessarily something that helps Farabee because he's not often on that top power play. But just a guy to keep an eye on. He has been able to turn it on lately. So nice to see that, certainly. This one's mine too. I got to follow up with a very suppressing cold streak. This one comes as no surprise to anybody, but we've sort of been avoiding talking about it. Jonathan Huberdeau, not to pile on the poor guy because it seems everybody's coming after him right now, but after a really disappointing debut season in Calgary, he had a decent start to the year, 4 points and 10 shots in the first 4 games. Since then, in 8 games, we've seen, just some serious and kind of rather public struggles and benches. He was down at the end of the bench with his head down, wasn't getting put in the third period. Just sad to see a guy go from a 100-point player to just, I don't know if it's the yips or if it's a failure to mesh with the team. We thought maybe with the coaching change he could find his groove, but it just hasn't started. He has just 7 shots in the 8 games since his nice 4-game start. Even though he's been getting 18 to 21 minutes in some of those games and a majority of the available power play time, he did have very low minutes in the most recent game, mostly because he was not seeing the ice in the third. I'm at a point where I'm ready to give permission to drop Huberdeau. Calgary isn't good enough to push him back to his old highs, even if he can recover his confidence and solve the problems with his game, which is obviously a huge if. I don't think dropping him puts you at risk to lose a 100-point player, rest of season pace. I don't think it puts you at risk of a 90 or an 80 or a 70. I think maybe he could be a 60-point guy rest of season if things start to go right, but who knows if that's going to happen. Kind of disappointing. But yeah, I would look at him as maybe 70 points if things really start to go right for him and turn around. But you tell me what the recipe is to make that happen, because I don't think anybody has been able to solve that particular problem yet.
Well, you'll have to hire me as a coach to get that, because I don't think anyone is coming to that idea. And then with you is that, as you're saying before, is that with the lack of shots, he doesn't hit, he doesn't block. So why people were a fan of him back in the Florida days was because of those points. So without the points, there's nothing left there. So that's going to be the dance that I have. Is I'm with you. Is that kind of how I was hitting with Teravainen? Is that I don't want to be the person sitting, having him on my roster playing as basically an incubator, waiting for him to perform with there's no hint of him performing. So this be a player that I'd be willing to drop. And as you said, it's not like he's going to turn into, prime Ovi and getting all these goals and whatnot. So even if he turns it back on, he's not going to turn back to much. So get your player now that can actually help you win. And then, hey, if you're quick on the finger, you might even pick him up again if he ever actually does anything, but there's no guarantee that that's going to happen in the first place.
Yeah, 100%. Maybe they want to, maybe someone wants to go out and make a 1-for-1 swap with a player from the Flames that they can grab right now. Tell us a little bit about Connor Zary.
So this is going to be an interesting situation, because basically the way that I look at it is that it's almost more of the player to have in Calgary is, and we were talking about, I think I may have told people that you could have dropped Kadri, and now he looks like to be turning it back again. He's shooting again, and in the last 4 games, he has 6 points, 2 goals, and 4 assists, and basically Zary's the one that's the second wheel, baby. I'm not sure who's the third person, because really at this point, there's not a lot of wheels on this team to be hanging around. So basically, Zary, as of now, is playing with the best offensive player, both on power play and on even strength. So he's a young guy with some pedigree. So hopefully it's just going to be one of those things that in a deep league, maybe is someone you can ride for some points if you're looking for something out of Calgary.
Yeah, listen, if I'm the Flames, I don't think they're necessarily going anywhere this season, and they've got this guy. Why not find out what he's capable of? So yeah, it's nice that he's getting a shot, that they're not, forcing themselves to keep throwing Huberdeau out there to, continue his sort of public humiliation that he's enduring. Give this guy a chance and see what he can go off and do, I think is very valuable for the team overall. And I think it makes for more fun hockey to watch, and, wishing Huberdeau all the best. I hope he can get that head up and figure out what's going wrong. But for now, I think it's time to get away from him. Just like, we talked about Jonas Johansson as an option. I just want to throw in one little bit here. I didn't want to mention it before the game ended because I was being very superstitious, but lots of credit to Jeremy. He told us on the last show he loves to try to target goalies who play who have a Thursday night game, and maybe they go in over the starting goalie, and then there's a back-to-back so they can get 2 of the 3 games. It sure looks like that's going to happen with Casey DeSmith. He had a win tonight for Vancouver, 5-2 over the Senators, allowed 2 goals on 30 shots. So a very nice outing, and then we'll get him again on Sunday against Montreal. So want to publicly show my appreciation for my partner on the pod on Tuesday, Jeremy, for the suggestion, because I've been very happy with Casey DeSmith here, and nice of the Vancouver offense to really pour it on. My opponent got a lot of those points, but that's okay because I got the win in the end, so I like to see that. And hey, we've hit the end of our show here, Shams. Another great week in the books. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for giving me some cover when I had to dash off and help deal with the kids for a little bit. And thanks to everybody who joined us in the Discord. It's been really fun hanging out with the patrons. If you want to become a patron of Keeping Karlsson, you can, of course, go to keepingkarlsson.com and check out how to join the patronage program, cacupful.com, to look at all of the cool stuff going on with the league. You can see our manager cards that Kevin Hebert puts together. There's just so much cool stuff going on with the league. It's unbelievable what they do, and we've got over 600 managers in this tiered league duking it out week in and week out. So pretty fun stuff. I'm going to run through those credits here at the end of the show. So be sure to give us a follow at Short Shifts KK. Brian and Elon, of course, can be found at Keeping Karlsson. Use Game Day tweets to get all the best info from Twitter without having to slog through the rest of Twitter. Team by team and searchable tweets by player name. Obviously, I'm telling Shams, but really I'm telling you, he's like the brains behind this whole thing. So you got to get up pretty early in the morning to beat Shams to any of these updates, because he is always ready with that trigger finger to give us all the information we need. Check out that site and the other sites we use to research our episodes: Yahoo, Frozen Tools, and Natural Stat Trick. Intro and outro music was created by Pat Roach. John Reed is our digital media producer. And until we see you next time, play smart and keep your shifts short.